guess we better start thinking about that.
Right.
Well, as one of the founding members of the Nephio project, I wanted to talk a little bit about how that plays a role in creating this cloud-native pathway for TELUS.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I think Nephio is one of those fundamental principles that is actually driven from the software world, from the cloud world, that actually challenges the status quo in the telecommunications world by its nature. The way telecom has approached to solve problems from its inception to how the evolution happened is that they try to boil the ocean, they try to make things a little bit more complex, and they try to think about the whole thing at once. While the vision coming from the software world is that they try to think small, try to solve a small problem by implementing that code for a smaller problem and then grow organically over time, like the nature of open source. Nephio is based on the principle of starting small, growing big. Now, Nephio has actually challenged the existing status quo of the projects. And for example, ONAP was a bigger project, and ETSI was a standard that tried to standardize the interfaces of a vertical stack within the telco, which over the period of time we felt that has failed. And we found Nephio to be approaching this problem and solving it in a totally different way. We imagined that Kubernetes becomes a de facto orchestration, and anything that is a new resource in the telecom context, for example, CNI plugins and CPU pinning and huge pages and all those extra new resources that Kubernetes is not natively aware of, could be expressed as custom CRs. And you write CRDs to define an ideal state for those resources, and operators actually run an infinite loop for you to bring your actual state to desired state, and that autonomous network vision has actually stood the test of time and scale. And the GitOps principle, observe, analyze, act, is basically Nephio's vision of how do we realize autonomous networks. It's very intent-driven, it's declarative, and I think that could become a very strong foundation for the vision of autonomous networks, and that drives the overall ecosystem of cloud native, because it imagines that Nephio would only be adopted and successful if your network functions become fully containerized and they're following the 12-factor principles, and if your culture is adopting the Kubernetes patterns, if you're GitOps friendly as well in your world, like we're using Poach and we're using the GitOps tools there. I think it's driving the whole ecosystem, the whole vision around how to drive that autonomous networks vision.
Yeah, well, and that kind of automation, I think, too, is going to be essential to the programmability of the network as well, too, and being able to allow industries and consumers to ultimately treat the telecom network fabric as their own computer, essentially, and to be able to program that for their own needs. And it's a big shift for telecom to get to that level.